Subscribe to Hollow Whisper Tales and unlock the secrets of the night. Welcome to Hollow Whisper Tales, where shadows hold secrets and echoes of the past whisper through the walls. Tonight, we delve into the chilling legend of the McKinley House, a place haunted by sorrow and dark mysteries. Join me as we unravel the tragic tale of a mother's love and a daughter's desperate search for freedom, where the line between life and death blurs in the depths of darkness. Story number .1 Echoes of Hollow Hill. Nestled in the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains lies Hollow Hill, a quaint little town that looks as though it has been plucked from the pages of a storybook. With its cobblestone streets, charming shops, and friendly faces, it exudes a warmth that draws in visitors, promising the serenity of small-town life. Yet, beneath this picturesque facade lies a history so dark and twisted that it has become a source of fear and fascination for those who call Hollow Hill home. Among the many tales that have woven themselves into the town's folklore, none is more haunting than that of the McKinley House. This old Victorian, with its weathered wood and crumbling brick, stands sentinel at the end of a winding road, watching over the town like a somber guardian. Its once grand facade, adorned with intricate woodwork and gabled roofs, now bears the marks of time, decay, and abandonment. Local legends whisper of ghostly apparitions, eerie sounds echoing through the empty halls, and an unsettling presence that seems to linger in the air. The story of the McKinley House is one steeped in tragedy. It belonged to the McKinley family, who were once pillars of the community, their laughter echoing through the halls of their home. But fate had other plans. A series of tragic events unfurled, plunging the family into despair and madness. The youngest daughter, Eliza, vanished one stormy night, and with her disappearance came a shroud of darkness that would envelop the family forever. Some say she was the victim of her family's own fear, accused of witchcraft and sacrificed to quell the town's superstitions. Others believe she was consumed by the very shadows that now haunt the house. As the years passed, the McKinley House fell into disrepair, its walls whispering secrets that only the brave, or the foolish, dare to uncover. The townsfolk have long avoided the property, sharing chilling tales of what they believe to be the restless spirits of the McKinley family. It is said that on certain nights, you can hear the soft cries of a girl in distress or the mournful wails of a mother grieving her lost child. The once vibrant home became a mere shell of its former self, its spirit trapped within the rotting walls, waiting for someone to acknowledge its existence. Enter Sarah Mitchell, a young journalist with an insatiable curiosity and a passion for uncovering the truth. Armed with her camera and a notepad, she thrives on seeking out the stories hidden in the dark corners of forgotten places. Drawn to the legend of the McKinley House, she sees it not as a cautionary tale, but as an opportunity, a chance to delve into the unknown and expose the haunting beauty of a tragedy long buried. Despite warnings from the locals, who shake their heads and murmur about the cursed nature of the house, Sarah's determination only grows stronger. She believes that understanding the past is crucial to unraveling the mysteries of the present. The people of Hollow Hill may view the McKinley House as a monument to sorrow, but to Sarah, it represents a story waiting to be told, a narrative ripe for exploration. She senses that within the shadows of the McKinley House lies a wealth of untold stories, and she is resolute in her quest to uncover them. As she prepares for her visit, Sarah researches the town's history and the tragic fate of the McKinley family. She learns that Eliza was a spirited girl, full of dreams and aspirations, yet burdened by the weight of her family's legacy. The journal she keeps reveals her descent into despair, her struggles with the expectations placed upon her, and her desperate desire to escape the suffocating confines of her home. It is in these writings that Sarah finds a connection to Eliza, a kindred spirit who, like her, seeks to break free from the chains of the past. On a fog-laden morning, Sarah sets out for the McKinley house, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and as she drives through the winding roads that lead to the house, she can't shake the feeling that she is being watched. The landscape around her transforms, the trees growing denser, their gnarled branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. A sense of foreboding hangs in the air, but Sarah presses on, driven by her desire to confront the darkness head-on. Upon arriving at the McKinley house, Sarah is struck by its imposing presence. The house looms over her, its cracked windows glimmering in the muted sunlight. The garden, once lush and vibrant, is now a tangle of weeds and wildflowers that seem to reach for the sky. As she steps out of her car, the chill in the air wraps around her like a shroud, sending a shiver down her spine. Sarah takes a deep breath, gathering her courage before stepping onto the creaking porch. The door, slightly ajar, beckons her inside. As she crosses the threshold, she is enveloped by an overwhelming sense of history, a feeling that the house is alive, pulsing with memories of the past. Each step echoes through the empty halls, and Sarah can't help but feel as though she is not alone. In that moment, she realizes that she is about to embark on a journey unlike any other, a journey that will test her courage, challenge her beliefs, and forever alter her understanding of the supernatural. The McKinley house, with its secrets and sorrows, waits patiently for her to uncover the echoes of its haunted past. And as Sarah begins to explore the shadows within, she will soon discover that some stories are better left untold. The legend of Hollow Hill. The story of Hollow Hill is woven into the very fabric of its existence, a tapestry of love, loss, and lingering spirits. At the heart of this narrative lies the McKinley house, a once grand Victorian residence that has become a symbol of the town's dark past. For generations, locals have passed down tales of the house, its former residents, and the tragic events that led to its haunting. The McKinley family story is a chilling reminder of the fragility of happiness and the depths of despair. The legend begins in the late 1800s when the McKinley family moved to Hollow Hill. John McKinley, a prosperous merchant, his wife Margaret, and their 3 children, Eliza, Samuel, and little Clara, settled into their new home, full of dreams and aspirations. The family quickly became well-respected members of the community, hosting lavish gatherings and providing for those in need. The laughter of children echoed through the halls of their home, and the townsfolk marveled at the family's idyllic life. But as often happens in stories of tragedy, darkness lurked just beneath the surface. It was during one particularly harsh winter that the first signs of trouble began to surface. A series of devastating events struck the McKinley family, sending ripples of fear through the community. First, Samuel, the eldest son, fell ill with a fever that no doctor could cure. Despite the family's desperate attempts to save him, he succumbed to his illness, leaving a gaping hole in their hearts. In the wake of Samuel's death, the family fell into a state of despair. Margaret, once the heart of the household, became withdrawn, her laughter replaced by a haunting silence. Eliza, only 13 at the time, was forced to shoulder the emotional burden of her grieving parents and little Clara, who barely understood the tragedy that had befallen them. As the weight of sorrow settled upon the McKinley house, whispers of madness began to circulate among the townsfolk. The turning point came one stormy night, when the family gathered for dinner. Lightning cracked in the sky, illuminating the somber faces around the table. Tensions ran high as Margaret and John argued about how to cope with their grief. In a fit of rage, John accused Margaret of neglecting their remaining child, Clara, in her sorrow. The argument escalated, voices rising to a fever pitch, until Margaret, overwhelmed, fled the house into the howling storm. Eliza, worried for her mother, followed her into the night. The wind howled like a mournful spirit as she searched for Margaret, calling her name into the darkness. Hours passed, and Eliza's calls went unanswered. Finally, as dawn broke, she found her mother lying unconscious in the muddy fields, drenched and shivering. When Margaret awoke, she seemed changed. Her eyes glazed over with a haunting emptiness. From that moment on, the McKinley family's fate spiraled further into despair. Margaret became increasingly unstable, haunted by visions of her lost son and her husband's anger. In her madness, she began to isolate herself, locking herself away in the attic, whispering to shadows only she could see. Eliza, now forced to care for her little sister Clara, became the reluctant caretaker of the household. But as the days turned into weeks, it became apparent that the family's troubles were far from over. Clara began to speak of a friend she had met in the garden, a girl who played with her and told her stories. At first, Eliza dismissed her sister's tales as imaginary playmates, the products of a child's imagination. But as Clara's descriptions grew more vivid, Eliza's unease deepened. One night, Clara disappeared from her room. Panicked, Eliza searched the house, calling her name until her voice grew hoarse. Finally, she found her in the garden, talking animatedly to an unseen figure beneath the ancient oak tree. Eliza rushed to Clara's side, pulling her away from the spot, a chill crawling up her spine. Clara's laughter faded as they returned to the house, and Eliza knew she could no longer ignore the strange occurrences that seemed to plague them. As the weeks turned into months, whispers of witchcraft and curses began to spread through Hollow Hill. The townsfolk, frightened by the McKinley family's decline, began to distance themselves from the once respected family. Rumors swirled, fueled by fear and superstition. Many claimed that the spirits of the McKinley family had angered the town, leading to their downfall. Others suggested that Eliza had inherited her mother's madness, drawing dark forces to their home. The situation reached its tragic climax one fateful night when Clara, now convinced that she could speak to spirits, ventured into the woods alone. Desperate for answers, Eliza followed her sister into the darkness, only to find herself engulfed in a chilling fog. Hours later, when dawn broke, Clara was nowhere to be found. The townsfolk rallied together to search for the missing child, but she had seemingly vanished without a trace. In the days that followed, the McKinley house became a place of mourning and despair. Eliza, consumed by guilt and grief, wandered the halls, crying out for her sister. Margaret, now completely lost to madness, would sit in the attic, clutching her son's old toys, muttering incoherently to the shadows that danced on the walls. John, devastated by the loss of his daughters and unable to cope with the unraveling of his family, sank into a deep depression, becoming a mere shell of the man he once was. One stormy night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, the townsfolk awoke to the sound of anguished cries coming from the McKinley house. When they arrived, they found John standing outside, wild-eyed and disheveled, declaring that his family was cursed. He raved about the darkness that had consumed them, claiming that they were trapped in a cycle of despair, destined to wander the earth as lost souls. In the following weeks, the McKinley family slowly disappeared from the town's collective memory, leaving behind only the haunting tales of their tragic fate. The McKinley house, once a symbol of hope and prosperity, now stood as a grim reminder of loss, with its windows like empty eyes watching the world outside. As the years passed, the legend of Hollow Hill grew, and the McKinley house became synonymous with fear. The townsfolk warned their children to stay away from the house, lest they fall prey to the spirits that roamed its halls. Yet, despite the warnings, The stories continued to draw the curious and the brave, those seeking to uncover the truth behind the whispers of Hollow Hill. And so, the legend of Hollow Hill endures, a chilling tale of love, loss, and the consequences of despair. A story waiting to be unraveled by those who dare to step into the darkness of the McKinley house. Sarah's investigation. With the weight of Hollow Hill's tragic history heavy on her heart, Sarah Mitchell prepared for her investigation into the McKinley house. Armed with a sturdy notebook, a camera, and an unyielding curiosity, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as she contemplated the stories she would uncover. Sarah understood that every old house has its secrets, but the McKinley house promised to reveal more than just dusty relics and forgotten memories. It was a gateway into a past fraught with sorrow and haunting echoes. Determined to get to the heart of the legend, Sarah began her investigation by speaking with the locals. She had heard that the residents of Hollow Hill were protective of their stories, and she hoped to earn their trust by approaching them with respect and an open mind. Armed with her camera, she set out on foot, strolling through the town's charming streets, taking in the sights and sounds of a place seemingly untouched by time. Her first stop was the local diner, a cozy establishment with checkered tablecloths and the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. As she entered, the chatter of patrons filled the room, and she was greeted by the friendly smile of the waitress, who introduced herself as Millie. Sarah took a seat at the counter, eager to engage in conversation. "Have you heard about the McKinley house?" Sarah asked, her tone casual, yet probing. Millie's expression shifted, the warmth in her eyes replaced by a flicker of unease. "Oh, that place? You'd best steer clear of it, honey. It's not just old, it's cursed." "Why do you say that?" Sarah pressed, intrigued. Millie glanced around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. "Folks say that house is haunted. Strange noises, shadows moving when there shouldn't be anyone there. And that poor McKinley family, they went through hell. Lost their kids, lost their minds. You really don't want to go poking around there." Undeterred, Sarah asked more questions, gradually piecing together the history of the house from snippets of conversation. Millie shared stories of neighbors who claimed to have seen Eliza's ghost wandering the garden, her figure illuminated by the moonlight. Other patrons chimed in, recounting their own eerie experiences or tales passed down from their parents and grandparents. As Sarah listened, a sense of urgency began to swell within her. She realized that each story was a thread, intertwining to form the tapestry of the McKinley family's tragic past. She needed to speak to more residents, to gather as many perspectives as possible before setting foot in the house. Over the next few days, Sarah visited various shops, homes, and community centers, each time meeting with locals willing to share their stories. An elderly man named Harold spoke of a childhood friend who had vanished while playing near the McKinley house. He said he saw a little girl in the garden, Harold recalled, his voice shaking with a memory. She told him to come play, and he ran home screaming. They found him in a fit, poor lad. Wouldn't go near that house again. Another woman, Mrs. Thompson, recounted how her grandmother used to warn her about the spirits of the lost children. She'd say they were trapped in that house, forever searching for a way out, she recalled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Each encounter left Sarah with a deeper understanding of the weight the McKinley family's story held over the community. The townspeople were not merely afraid of the house. They were burdened by a shared grief and guilt, a history that had become intertwined with their identities. The more she learned, the more she felt an unshakable connection to Eliza, a young girl who had suffered far beyond her years. With her notebook filled with accounts and the townsfolk's names sprawled alongside their stories, Sarah knew she was ready to confront the McKinley house. She felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as she prepared for the visit. It was one thing to hear about the house from a distance, It was another to step into its haunting embrace. On a dreary afternoon, she drove toward the McKinley house, the sky overcast and heavy with impending rain. The winding road leading to the property seemed to grow narrower, flanked by overgrown trees that leaned inward, as if to shield the house from prying eyes. When she finally caught sight of the Victorian structure, a shiver ran down her spine. It loomed like a ghost of the past, its windows dark and uninviting, yet beckoning her to uncover its secrets. As she parked her car and stepped onto the property, Sarah felt a chill in the air, a tangible sense of foreboding. The garden, once lush and vibrant, had become a wild tangle of weeds and thorny vines, swallowing what remained of its former beauty. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and Sarah could hear the distant cawing of crows perched on the roof. With her camera at the ready, Sarah approached the house, her heart racing with anticipation. She pushed open the creaking door, the sound echoing through the silence like a mournful sigh. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the musty scent of neglect. Sunlight filtered through the grimy windows, casting eerie shadows that danced across the dust-covered floor. As she began to explore the house, Sarah felt a strange energy envelop her, as if the very walls were whispering secrets long forgotten. The atmosphere was charged with an unsettling mix of sorrow and despair, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. With each room she entered, memories of the McKinley family seemed to resonate around her. The faded wallpaper bore witness to laughter and tears. The furniture spoke of lives once lived, and the echoes of their tragedies lingered in the air. Sarah could almost hear Eliza's laughter, a fleeting sound carried on the wind, urging her to uncover the truth hidden within the shadows. Determined to document her findings, Sarah took photographs of the house's haunting beauty. She captured the intricate woodwork, the tarnished chandeliers, and the dust-laden portraits that hung on the walls, remnants of a family whose dreams had been shattered. As she worked, Sarah could feel the weight of the McKinley family's sorrow pressing down on her, intertwining her own fate with theirs. In that moment, she understood that her investigation was no longer just about uncovering the past for a story. It was about honoring the lives that had been lost within these walls. The McKinley house was not merely a relic. It was a testament to love, loss, and the enduring echoes of those who had once called it home. As dusk settled over Hollow Hill, casting long shadows through the windows, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She knew she had only just begun to scratch the surface of the McKinley family story. There was much more to uncover, secrets waiting to be revealed and spirits yearning for release. And she was ready to confront whatever lay within the heart of the McKinley house. The arrival at McKinley House. As Sarah parked her car in front of the McKinley house, an uneasy feeling settled in her stomach. The sky hung heavy with dark clouds, casting a somber shadow over the landscape. The ancient trees lining the driveway creaked in the wind, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal fingers reaching out toward the house, as if warning her to turn back. Yet Sarah felt a magnetic pull toward the Victorian structure, a desire to uncover the mysteries that lay within its walls. She took a moment to collect her thoughts, glancing at the house from her car window. The McKinley house stood tall and proud, albeit weathered and worn. Its once vibrant paint had faded to a muted shade of gray, and the shutters hung askew, giving the impression that the house was peering out at the world with tired eyes. The garden, once a flourishing paradise, now resembled a wild jungle, the flowers overtaken by thorny weeds that seemed to encroach on the very foundation of the house. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped out of the car, the chill of the air biting at her skin. She grabbed her camera and notebook, feeling a rush of adrenaline as she approached the front door. Each step felt heavier than the last, her heart pounding in her chest as she neared the threshold of the home that had become the epicenter of so many whispered tales. The door, slightly ajar, creaked ominously as she pushed it open, revealing a darkened hallway beyond. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and the weight of forgotten memories. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet, echoing in the silence like the whispers of the past. Sunlight filtered through the grimy windows, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated the layers of dust dancing in the air. The entrance hall, with its grand staircase spiraling upward, felt both welcoming and foreboding, as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for her to make the next move. With each step further into the house, Sarah felt a strange energy envelop her. It was as if the walls were alive, pulsating with the echoes of the McKinley family's sorrow. She could almost hear the laughter of children, the chatter of dinner parties, and the soft whispers of secrets shared in the dimly lit rooms. But beneath those echoes lay a profound sense of loss, a weight that pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Determined to explore every corner of the house, Sarah began her investigation. She reached for her camera, snapping photos of the intricate woodwork along the staircase and the faded wallpaper that adorned the walls. Each click of the shutter felt like a bridge connecting her to the past, capturing the essence of a family that had once thrived within these walls. Her first stop was the parlor, where the remnants of a once grand life still lingered. Dusty furniture sat covered with white sheets, preserving a fragile history. An ornate chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals dulled by neglect, yet it still retained an air of elegance. Sarah moved closer, gently lifting one of the sheets to reveal a velvet armchair, its fabric worn but still rich in color. As she settled into the chair, she closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to imagine the lively conversations that had taken place here. She could almost hear the soft strains of music drifting through the air and the clinking of glasses as the McKinleys hosted their guests. But as she opened her eyes, the weight of reality settled back in, reminding her of the tragedies that had unfolded in this very room. Next, Sarah ventured into the dining room, where the long, polished table still bore the scars of countless family meals. The chairs were scattered haphazardly, as if the family had left in a hurry, abandoning their lives in the face of unimaginable loss. On the table, she noticed an ornate silver candelabrum, tarnished but beautiful, a relic of happier times. She picked it up, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingers, and imagined the warmth of candlelight flickering as the McKinleys gathered around for dinner. Suddenly, a gust of wind howled through the broken windows, rattling the shutters and sending a chill down Sarah's spine. She shivered, instinctively glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see a figure standing in the doorway. But the room remained empty, silent except for the sound of her own breathing. The air grew colder, and Sarah felt a wave of unease wash over her. Steeling herself, she moved to the next room, a small study tucked away at the end of the hallway. The room was dimly lit, filled with dusty bookshelves that sagged under the weight of forgotten tomes. A large desk, covered in cobwebs, sat against the wall, its surface cluttered with yellowed papers and faded photographs. Sarah approached the desk, intrigued by the remnants of the McKinley family's life. She picked up a photograph, its edges frayed, and examined it closely. It depicted the McKinley family, standing proudly in front of the house, smiles gracing their faces. Sarah felt a pang of sorrow as she recognized the joy that once filled their lives, a stark contrast to the haunting stories she had heard. As she continued to sift through the papers, one particular letter caught her eye. Its handwriting was delicate, looping, and familiar. The letter was addressed to Eliza, filled with words of encouragement and love from a friend. Sarah could almost hear the voice of that friend, urging Eliza to embrace life despite the darkness that surrounded her. A sense of connection washed over her. Eliza was not just a ghost from the past. She was a young girl who had dreams, hopes, and a longing for freedom. Just as Sarah was lost in thought, she felt a sudden chill race through the room, causing the hair on her arms to stand on end. The air grew thick, and she sensed a presence, an inexplicable weight pressing down on her chest. Her heart raced as she turned, half expecting to find someone behind her. But again, the room was empty, save for the shadows that danced along the walls. Feeling unnerved but undeterred, Sarah decided to explore the upstairs rooms, convinced that they held the key to understanding the McKinley family's fate. As she climbed the staircase, the wood creaked under her weight, and she felt as though she were ascending into a realm of the past. Each step brought her closer to the heart of the house, where the deepest secrets lay waiting to be uncovered. The upstairs hallway stretched out before her, lined with closed doors that concealed the memories of a family shattered by grief. Taking a deep breath, she chose the first door on her left, her fingers brushing against the faded paint. As she pushed it open, she was met with a sight that stole her breath away. The room was a child's bedroom, adorned with delicate floral wallpaper that had faded over the years. A small bed sat in the corner, draped with a quilt that looked as though it had been lovingly made. Toys lay scattered across the floor, remnants of a childhood that had been cut short. Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of sadness wash over her. This was Clara's room. As she stepped inside, the door creaked behind her, and she felt a strange warmth envelop her, as if Clara's spirit lingered in the room. Sarah knelt beside the bed, running her fingers over the quilt, imagining the little girl who had once snuggled beneath its warmth. She could almost hear Clara's laughter echoing in the air, a haunting melody of innocence lost. Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the silence. "Are you here to play?" It whispered, a delicate sound that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. She froze, her heart pounding, unsure if she had truly heard something or if her imagination was running wild. "Clara," she called out, her voice trembling. But there was no response, only the eerie silence of the room, as if the house itself held its breath. Sarah's heart raced, a mixture of fear and curiosity coursing through her veins. She knew she had to press on, to uncover the truth behind the McKinley family's tragedy. The McKinley house was alive with echoes, and Sarah was determined to listen. The arrival at McKinley House. As Sarah Mitchell parked her car along the overgrown driveway of the McKinley house, a palpable tension filled the air. The sky above was a slate gray, thick clouds hanging low, as if mirroring the weight of history that clung to the old Victorian structure. She couldn't help but feel the chill that seeped into her bones as she stepped out, the wind whispering secrets of the past through the rustling leaves of the surrounding trees. The McKinley house loomed before her, a somber reminder of its tragic legacy. It stood as a testament to time, weathered by storms, silent in its grief, and shrouded in mystery. The paint had faded to a dull gray, peeling in places, while the once vibrant garden was now a tangled mass of weeds and wildflowers that had gone unchecked. Sarah gazed at the house, her heart racing with both excitement and apprehension. She was drawn to it, as if the very walls were calling out to her, beckoning her to uncover the stories hidden within. Taking a deep breath, she made her way toward the front steps, each creak of the wood echoing in the stillness. The door was slightly ajar, an invitation to enter the world that had once belonged to the McKinley family. As she pushed it open, the heavy door groaned in protest, revealing a darkened hallway filled with dust motes dancing in the faint light that filtered through grimy windows. The scent of mildew hung in the air, mingling with the mustiness of forgotten memories. Stepping inside, Sarah felt an almost electric thrill coursing through her. She pulled out her camera, its weight reassuring in her hands, ready to capture the remnants of a family long gone. The entrance hall was adorned with intricate woodwork, the banister leading up to the second floor like a beckoning finger. Faded photographs adorned the walls, their subjects frozen in time, faces gazing down at her with a mix of warmth and sorrow. Her first instinct was to explore the parlor, which seemed to promise glimpses of the lives once lived there. The room was shrouded in shadows, the heavy curtains drawn tight against the outside world. As she pulled back one curtain, a shaft of light broke through, illuminating the room in a soft glow. Dust danced in the beams, and Sarah could almost imagine the laughter of children playing in the garden outside. The parlor was furnished with plush chairs, now covered in dust and draped with white sheets. An ornate fireplace sat at one end, its mantel lined with delicate porcelain figurines that appeared untouched by time. Sarah approached the fireplace, brushing her fingers along the cold marble, feeling the chill of the past seep into her skin. It was a haunting reminder of the warmth that had once filled the room. As she moved about the room, Sarah began to hear soft creaks, faint sounds that seemed to come from the floorboards above. Her heart raced, and she paused to listen, straining to hear if anyone else was in the house. But all that greeted her was the heavy silence, broken only by the distant sound of wind rustling through the trees outside. Determined to delve deeper, Sarah ventured into the adjoining dining room. The long, polished table still bore the marks of countless family meals, and the chairs, though dusty, stood at attention as if waiting for the McKinley family to return. The grand chandelier, tarnished but still majestic, hung above like a watchful guardian, its crystals catching the fading light. As she snapped photographs of the room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The air felt charged, as if the very walls were filled with the echoes of the past. She could almost envision the McKinleys gathered around the table, laughter filling the air as they shared stories and dreams. But beneath that vision lay a darker reality, a reminder of the tragedy that had befallen the family. Turning her attention to the kitchen, Sarah felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her, the heart of any home. The kitchen was filled with remnants of domestic life. An old cast-iron stove sat in the corner, its surface coated in layers of dust. Cabinets hung above, their doors slightly ajar, revealing chipped dishes and tarnished silverware that spoke of meals prepared and memories shared. As she opened a cabinet, the door creaked loudly, startling her. For a moment, Sarah froze, her breath catching in her throat as she felt a chill run down her spine. Was it just her imagination, or was there a presence in the room with her, shaking off the unease? She reminded herself that she was here to uncover the truth, to understand the lives that had been lived within these walls. Deciding to explore upstairs, Sarah climbed the staircase, each step creaking under her weight. The second floor felt different, darker, more oppressive. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew, and shadows danced along the walls, deepening her sense of foreboding. She approached the first door on her left, hesitating for a moment before turning the knob and pushing it open. Inside was a small bedroom, its decor reminiscent of a child's world. The wallpaper was faded and peeling, but the delicate floral patterns still clung to the memory of innocence. A small bed sat against the wall, its quilt lovingly stitched, but now covered in dust. Toys lay scattered across the floor, remnants of a childhood that had been abruptly cut short. As she knelt beside the bed, a sense of melancholy washed over her. This was Clara's room, the youngest McKinley child who had vanished into the shadows of time. Sarah could almost hear the echoes of Clara's laughter, feel the warmth of her spirit lingering in the air. The weight of the child's absence was palpable, and Sarah felt a mix of sadness and determination. Suddenly, a gust of wind rushed through the open window, causing the curtains to billow like ghostly apparitions. Sarah shivered, the temperature dropping as an inexplicable chill filled the room. She glanced back, half expecting to see someone standing in the doorway, but the space remained empty, shrouded in darkness. A knot of fear tightened in her stomach, but she pushed it aside, convinced that the stories she had heard had affected her imagination. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Sarah continued her exploration, moving from room to room. The master bedroom was a haunting sight, with its large four-poster bed draped in dust-covered linens. A faded portrait of John and Margaret McKinley hung on the wall, their expressions frozen in time, a haunting reminder of the love that had once flourished here. In the corner of the room stood a wardrobe, its door slightly ajar. With a mixture of trepidation and anticipation, Sarah approached it, her heart racing. She opened the doors to reveal an array of clothing, dresses that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. As she ran her fingers over the fabric, she felt a strange energy radiating from the garments, as if they were imbued with the very essence of the McKinley family. Just then, a faint sound echoed through the hallway, a soft whisper that sent a jolt of adrenaline through her veins. "Help me," it seemed to call. A delicate voice carried on the wind. Sarah froze, her breath hitching in her throat. The voice felt so real, so close, yet the house remained silent, as if the walls themselves were conspiring to keep its secrets hidden. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Was it Clara, still searching for solace? Or was it Eliza, trapped in the shadows of her grief? The weight of the house's history pressed down on her, intertwining with her own sense of purpose. She realized she was not merely an observer. She was part of the story, the next chapter in the haunting legacy of the McKinley family. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah stepped back into the hallway, her heart pounding with anticipation. She would not shy away from the mysteries that lay ahead. The McKinley house was alive with echoes, and she was ready to listen, to learn, and to honor the spirits that lingered within its walls. As she prepared to delve deeper into the darkness of the house, Sarah felt a flicker of hope amidst the shadows. Perhaps, in unraveling the stories of the past, she could also bring light to the darkness that had enveloped the McKinley family. With each room she explored, she felt the weight of the past guiding her, urging her to uncover the truth that had long been buried in the silence of the McKinley house. The first night, as twilight settled over the McKinley house, shadows began to stretch across the creaking floorboards, and an unsettling silence enveloped the space. Sarah Mitchell had spent the day exploring the dilapidated rooms, piecing together fragments of the McKinley family's history. But now, as the darkness deepened, an unease crept into her heart. She knew she should leave, return to the safety of her car and the familiarity of her life outside these haunted walls. But the pull of the house was too strong. After capturing countless photographs and jotting down notes, she had decided to stay the night. Armed with her camera, a flashlight, and a notepad, Sarah settled into the parlor, positioning herself on the same plush armchair she had examined earlier. The soft fabric felt comforting against her back, and she hoped it would provide some warmth against the growing chill. She lit a small candle, placing it on the coffee table to illuminate the room with a flickering glow. The flame danced nervously, casting elongated shadows that seemed to morph and twist on the walls, enhancing the eerie atmosphere. The first few hours were uneventful. Sarah busied herself reviewing her notes and organizing the photographs she had taken throughout the day. Every click of the camera had felt like a connection to the past, a way to capture the essence of the McKinley family. Yet, as the clock ticked toward midnight, a sense of loneliness began to settle over her. The house, once filled with the laughter and chatter of a family, now felt like a tomb, each silence amplifying her own heartbeat. As she sat in the dim light, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. The quietude of the house was punctuated by the soft sounds of creaking wood and distant rustles that made her skin crawl. At times, she thought she could hear whispers, faint, elusive sounds that beckoned her to listen closer. Every time she turned her head, hoping to catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure or the source of the sounds, she was met with stillness. With her mind racing and her curiosity piqued, Sarah decided to conduct an experiment. She set up her voice recorder on the coffee table, hoping to capture any whispers or noises that might occur during the night. Pressing the record button, she took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. "If anyone is here with me, I invite you to communicate," she said aloud, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to hear your story." As the candle flickered, casting a warm glow around the room, Sarah settled back into the chair, her senses heightened. Minutes turned into hours, and the house remained eerily quiet. Just as she began to feel drowsy, a sudden chill swept through the room, snuffing out the candle's flame. The darkness enveloped her like a heavy blanket, and Sarah's heart raced as she fumbled for her flashlight, illuminating the shadows with its narrow beam. "Okay, that was just the wind," she muttered to herself, though doubt gnawed at her insides. She turned on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing the familiar contours of the room. The flickering light caught on the faded wallpaper, illuminating the dust motes that swirled like lost souls. But as she scanned the room, the feeling of being watched intensified. It was as if unseen eyes were scrutinizing her every move. Deciding to shake off the growing anxiety, Sarah took a deep breath and rose from her chair, the floor creaking beneath her weight. She grabbed her notebook and made her way to the staircase, drawn by an inexplicable urge to explore the upper floor again. As she climbed the stairs, the wooden steps groaned in protest, and she felt as though the house was warning her to turn back. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out before her, cloaked in shadows. Sarah hesitated, the air thick with tension. With her flashlight illuminating the path ahead, she approached the first door on her right, the one that had led to Clara's room. Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room was still and silent, the moonlight filtering through the window and casting a silvery glow across the floor. Clara's toys lay untouched, and the quilt on the bed remained as she had found it earlier. Sarah stepped inside, feeling an overwhelming sense of nostalgia wash over her. She knelt beside the bed, her fingers tracing the patterns of the quilt, and for a fleeting moment, she could almost sense the child's presence lingering in the air. Suddenly, a soft whisper floated through the room, barely audible yet unmistakable. "Help me." The voice was gentle, filled with a longing that pierced Sarah's heart. She froze, her breath caught in her throat, her pulse quickening in response to the chilling sensation that swept over her. "Clara," she called out hesitantly, the name escaping her lips like a prayer. Silence enveloped her once more, heavy and suffocating. Sarah felt the hairs on the back of her neck prickling, a wave of fear washing over her. Was she truly alone? The air grew colder, and she shivered, instinctively glancing over her shoulder as if expecting to see a ghostly figure standing in the doorway. But the hall remained empty, shrouded in darkness. Determined not to succumb to fear, Sarah continued her exploration, venturing further down the hall. She opened the next door, which led to a small bathroom. The tiles were cracked, and the mirror was clouded with age, but it was the lingering scent of lavender soap that struck her as odd. It felt strangely welcoming, contrasting sharply with the oppressive atmosphere that enveloped the house. As she examined the room, the whispering voice returned, more urgent this time. "Please help me." The words resonated within her, a haunting plea that sent chills racing down her spine. Who was calling out to her? "Clara? Eliza?" or someone else entirely. The thought of being drawn into the world of the McKinley family's tragedies both terrified and fascinated her. Compelled by a force she couldn't understand, Sarah moved toward the end of the hallway, where the final door stood slightly ajar. She hesitated, feeling an inexplicable dread, but her curiosity pushed her forward. With a steadying breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark, the moonlight barely penetrating the gloom. It appeared to be a study, filled with dusty bookshelves and an imposing desk cluttered with old papers. A sense of foreboding washed over her as she crossed the threshold, the air thickening with tension. Suddenly, she felt an overwhelming weight pressing down on her chest, as if the room itself were alive, bearing witness to her intrusion. With her flashlight illuminating the room, Sarah scanned the shelves, her heart racing with anticipation. But before she could process what she saw, a loud bang echoed through the house, reverberating off the walls and rattling her bones. The sound was deafening, sending her heart into overdrive. She whipped around, her flashlight beam dancing wildly as she searched for the source. "Hello," she called out, her voice quaking with fear. Silence enveloped her once more, but the feeling of being watched intensified. She could sense a presence behind her, a figure lurking in the shadows. The cold air wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing her lungs, making it difficult to breathe. Just as she was about to flee, she caught sight of a movement in the corner of her eye. A fleeting glimpse, a shadow darting past the doorway. Her heart raced, and without thinking, she bolted toward the door, nearly tripping over her own feet as she stumbled back into the hallway. Breathless and shaken, Sarah pressed her back against the wall, the reality of her situation crashing over her like a tidal wave. She was not alone in the McKinley house, and whatever lingered within its walls was not merely a figment of her imagination. A sense of urgency flooded her mind, and she realized that the whispers, the shadows, they were all connected to the family's tragic history. With newfound determination, Sarah resolved to uncover the truth of the McKinley family and the spirits that haunted their home. She would face whatever darkness lay ahead, not just for herself but for Clara, Eliza, and the others who had been lost to time. As the first night in the McKinley house deepened, Sarah understood that this was only the beginning of her journey, a journey filled with secrets, sorrow, and the desperate search for closure, unraveling the mystery. As dawn broke over the McKinley house, the early light filtered through the grimy windows, casting a soft glow on the dust motes that danced in the air. Sarah Mitchell had barely slept, her mind racing with the events of the previous night. The whispers, the shadows, and the overwhelming sense of urgency gnawed at her, compelling her to uncover the secrets hidden within these walls. The McKinley family's tragic history had seeped into her soul, igniting a fire within her to reveal the truth. With renewed determination, Sarah decided to delve deeper into the mystery that surrounded the house and its former inhabitants. She gathered her notes and photographs, poring over the details she had compiled. Every encounter, every chilling whisper echoed in her mind as she sought to connect the dots. She felt like a detective in a twisted tale, tasked with unraveling a dark enigma that had festered for far too long. Before venturing out into the world beyond the house, Sarah made her way back to Clara's room. She felt an inexplicable pull toward the little girl, whose presence had been so palpable the night before. She knelt beside the bed, hoping to find clues that might illuminate the circumstances surrounding Clara's disappearance. Her fingers brushed against the faded quilt, and as she did, a small object caught her eye. A delicate locket nestled beneath the bed. Gingerly, Sarah reached for it, her heart racing with excitement and trepidation. The locket was ornate, its surface engraved with intricate patterns, and it felt surprisingly warm in her palm. As she opened it, she was met with the image of a little girl, her bright eyes shining with innocence. Sarah recognized the familiar features, Clara McKinley. Her heart ached at the sight. It was a tangible reminder of the life that had been stolen from her. The other side of the locket remained closed, and Sarah's fingers trembled as she flipped it open. Inside was a faded photograph of a woman, Eliza McKinley, Clara's mother. The resemblance between mother and daughter was unmistakable, and Sarah felt a surge of empathy for the woman who had lost her child. Suddenly, she understood the weight of the sorrow that permeated the house. Eliza's grief had become a part of its very essence, a haunting melody that played through the empty halls. Determined to learn more, Sarah returned to the study, hoping to uncover any additional clues about the family's tragic history. The desk was still cluttered with old papers, and she rifled through them, searching for anything that might provide insight into the events that had unfolded within these walls. As she flipped through yellowed pages, her heart quickened when she came across a journal, its cover cracked and worn. With care, Sarah opened the journal, revealing pages filled with elegant handwriting. It was Eliza's journal, and as she began to read, the words transported her back in time, allowing her to glimpse the world through Eliza's eyes. October 12, 1890, she read aloud, her voice trembling with emotion. Today, Clara asked me about the whispers in the night. She says she hears a little girl calling to her. I dismissed it as childhood imagination, but a part of me wonders if there is something more. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The journal detailed Clara's experiences in the house, the strange occurrences that had haunted her, and Eliza's attempts to protect her daughter from whatever darkness lurked within the walls. Eliza's entries were filled with love, but they also revealed her growing fear as Clara's curiosity intensified. November 5, 1890, she continued, her eyes scanning the page. Clara has become withdrawn. I fear she is being drawn to something beyond my reach. I must keep her safe. But how can I when I do not understand the forces at play? The whispers grow louder each night. Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she read Eliza's desperate words. The bond between mother and daughter was palpable, and the anguish Eliza felt echoed through time. It was evident that Clara's disappearance had not been a mere accident, but something far more sinister. As she continued to read, Sarah discovered a passage that sent shivers down her spine. November 30th, 1890. I saw her, a little girl, standing in the garden. She looks just like Clara. I tried to call to her, but she vanished into thin air. The whispers have become more pronounced. I fear for my child. What is happening in this house? Sarah closed the journal, her heart pounding. She had stumbled upon the key to unraveling the mystery. Clara's connection to the house, the other child Eliza had seen. Could it be that Clara had not simply vanished, but rather had been pulled into another realm? The thought sent a chill down her spine, and she knew she had to confront the dark energy that lingered in the McKinley house. Equipped with the knowledge of Eliza's struggles, Sarah prepared for what lay ahead. She gathered her camera, flashlight, and notebook, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. She needed to return to the places where Clara had played, to the garden that had once been alive with laughter. Perhaps by revisiting these spaces, she could uncover more clues, or even make contact with Clara's spirit. As she stepped outside into the brisk morning air, Sarah felt invigorated. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the garden, which had long been abandoned. The once vibrant flowers were now wild and overgrown, but there was still beauty in the chaos. As she walked through the tangled foliage, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. Suddenly, she noticed a small patch of flowers blooming near the old swing set, the very place Clara had played as a child. Kneeling down, she brushed her fingers against the petals, marveling at their resilience. It was as if the flowers were reaching for the sun, refusing to be overshadowed by the darkness that had enveloped the house. In that moment, Sarah felt a gentle breeze wash over her, and she closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the sun envelop her. "Clara," she whispered, "if you can hear me, please know that I'm here to help you. I want to understand what happened to you." A soft rustle echoed through the garden, and Sarah opened her eyes, scanning the surroundings. The air felt charged with energy, and she could almost sense the presence of the little girl who had once played here. Heart pounding, she raised her camera, hoping to capture something, anything, that might confirm her suspicions. As she snapped a few photographs, the sunlight caught something in the distance, a fleeting figure darting among the trees. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, and she instinctively followed the movement, her heart racing with excitement and fear. Was it Clara? The whispers of the past urged her forward, compelling her to seek the truth that lay hidden within the garden's depths. Following the figure, Sarah ventured deeper into the overgrown garden, her senses heightened. She could feel the weight of history pressing upon her, and with every step, she felt closer to unraveling the mystery that had haunted the McKinley house for generations. The line between the living and the lost blurred, and Sarah knew that she was not merely an observer in this story. She was becoming a part of it, drawn into a world where love and loss intertwined. As she approached the edge of the garden, the atmosphere shifted, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a haunting melody. Sarah felt a surge of determination. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The legacy of the McKinley family demanded it, and she could not turn away from the path that lay before her. With a heart full of resolve, Sarah ventured deeper into the mystery, knowing that the answers she sought were just beyond the shadows, waiting to be unveiled, deeper into the darkness. As Sarah ventured deeper into the garden, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The once vibrant flora, now wild and unkempt, seemed to close in around her, the branches of overgrown bushes tangling together like skeletal fingers. Shadows danced playfully under the trees, yet the oppressive weight of silence pressed down heavily, filling her with a sense of foreboding. The whispers had become almost rhythmic, echoing her own heartbeat, urging her onward, deeper into the darkness that enveloped the McKinley house. Each step felt like a journey through time, the air thickening with the ghosts of memories long past. She recalled Eliza's journal entries, her desperation, and love for Clara intertwining with the darkness that loomed over their lives. This garden had once been a sanctuary for the young girl, a place of joy and laughter. Now, it felt like a threshold to another world, a realm where the boundaries of life and death blurred. As she pushed further into the thicket, Sarah stumbled upon a clearing shrouded in shadows, a forgotten corner of the garden that had been neglected for years. In its center stood an ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots twisting and curling into the earth like serpents. The tree bore the scars of time, its bark weathered and cracked, yet it emanated a sense of strength and resilience. Sarah felt an inexplicable connection to the tree, as if it held the secrets of the McKinley family within its core. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices merging into one. She knelt before the oak, placing her hand on the rough bark, hoping to draw some energy from it. "If anyone is here, please show me," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, a cool breeze swept through the clearing, causing the leaves to rustle softly. Sarah's heart raced, and she instinctively turned her camera to capture the moment. As she snapped a photograph, the sunlight caught the tree's silhouette, and for a brief second, she thought she saw a figure standing beside it. A little girl with golden hair, her face framed by the gentle sunlight. Startled, Sarah squinted, but the figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The whispers crescendoed, rising in intensity until they became a deafening roar. Heart pounding, She stood up, scanning the clearing, but there was no one there. "Clara," she called, her voice trembling. "Is that you?" Silence fell again, enveloping her in an eerie stillness. She felt a chill run down her spine, but rather than fear, it ignited a sense of purpose within her. She couldn't turn back now. She had to uncover what lay beneath the surface of this haunting mystery. Determined, Sarah circled the tree, examining its base for any signs of life or hidden treasures. As she dug her fingers into the soft earth, her hand brushed against something cold and metallic. Pulling it from the ground, she uncovered an old, rusted key, its surface covered in dirt and grime. The key felt heavy in her palm, and she wondered what door it might unlock, what secrets had been buried alongside it. With the key clutched tightly in her hand, Sarah made her way back toward the McKinley house, the shadows deepening around her. The whispers followed her, echoing in her ears, urging her to delve deeper into the heart of the mystery. The house loomed before her, its dark silhouette stark against the fading light. She felt a sense of urgency as she crossed the threshold, the air inside heavy with tension. In the dim light of the parlor, Sarah approached the staircase, her heart racing with anticipation. She had to find out what the key unlocked. The journal had mentioned a locked room, a place where Eliza had hidden her fears, a sanctuary where she hoped to protect Clara from whatever darkness had infiltrated their lives. Could this key be the answer she had been searching for? With determination, Sarah ascended the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she reached the second floor, she felt an electric charge in the air, as if the very walls were alive with energy. The hallway stretched before her, and she moved toward the last door on the left, the one she had previously avoided. Holding her breath, she inserted the key into the lock, her fingers trembling as she turned it. The mechanism clicked, and she felt a rush of adrenaline as she pushed the door open, revealing a room cloaked in darkness. The scent of mildew hung in the air, and dust particles danced in the faint light filtering through the cracks in the window. Stepping inside, Sarah's flashlight beam illuminated the room, revealing the remnants of a long-forgotten space. Old furniture sat shrouded in white sheets, like ghosts waiting to be awakened. The walls were adorned with faded portraits of the McKinley family, their expressions frozen in time. She could feel their eyes watching her, their stories lingering in the air, desperate to be told. As she moved deeper into the room, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, the air thickening with an inexplicable energy. On a small table in the corner, she noticed a large, ornate chest. The intricate carvings on its surface seemed to depict scenes from the family's life, but a dark cloud hovered over them, a symbol of the tragedy that had unfolded within these walls. With trembling hands, Sarah approached the chest, her heart racing. She knelt beside it and noticed that the lock was broken, as if someone had forced it open in a fit of desperation. She opened the lid, and her breath caught in her throat at the sight before her. Inside the chest lay a collection of letters, their edges yellowed with age. Sarah carefully pulled them out, her heart racing as she realized they were correspondence between Eliza and her sister, detailing the family's struggles and fears. The words were laced with sorrow, the ink smudged by tears that had fallen over time. "Dear sister," one letter began, "I fear for Clara. The whispers have grown louder, and I cannot shake the feeling that something is watching us. I pray you can help us before it is too late." As Sarah read through the letters, a picture began to form in her mind, one of a mother's desperate attempts to protect her child from the darkness that lurked within the house. Each letter was filled with love, fear, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. The whispers in the night had not been mere figments of imagination. They were real, a manifestation of the spirits that had been trapped in this realm. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she pieced together the tragic story of the McKinley family. Eliza had fought valiantly to keep Clara safe, but ultimately, the darkness had claimed them both. It was a tragedy woven into the very fabric of the house, a legacy of pain that echoed through time. As Sarah held the letters close to her heart, she felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. She had to bring this story to light, to ensure that Clara and Eliza were not forgotten. The darkness that had engulfed the McKinley house could not continue to shroud their legacy. With newfound resolve, Sarah vowed to uncover the truth and give a voice to the spirits that had been silenced for far too long. The whispers, the shadows, and the secrets of the past were no longer mere echoes. They were a call to action, urging her to fight for the truth that had been buried deep within the darkness. Determined, Sarah prepared to face whatever lay ahead, ready to confront the shadows and illuminate the path toward closure for the lost souls of the McKinley family. The climax. The air in the McKinley house crackled with tension as Sarah stood surrounded by the remnants of the past, the letters clutched tightly in her hand. The weight of Eliza's despair and Clara's innocence bore down on her, compelling her to confront the darkness that had haunted this family for generations. With her heart pounding, Sarah sensed that she was approaching a pivotal moment, the climax of her investigation. Drawing a deep breath, she steadied herself and began to piece together the fragments of the story that had unfolded within these walls. The whispers had grown more urgent, almost pleading, as if the spirits themselves were guiding her toward the truth. They echoed through the halls, weaving a tapestry of sorrow and loss that enveloped her. Sarah's instincts led her back to the garden, where the ancient oak stood sentinel over the secrets buried beneath its roots. She could feel the energy pulsing from the tree, a connection to the past that thrummed in her veins. As she approached, she noticed the ground near the tree had been disturbed, the soil freshly turned. With her heart racing, Sarah knelt down, her fingers digging into the earth. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her in a chorus of voices urging her to unearth what had been hidden for so long. She felt a rush of adrenaline as she unearthed an old, weathered box, its surface adorned with intricate carvings. It felt heavier than it should have, as if it contained the weight of history within its confines. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the box, revealing a collection of items, pieces of Clara's life. There were drawings she had made, a few worn toys, and a small doll with a frayed dress, its button eyes staring blankly back at her. Among these relics lay a journal, the cover embellished with a heart. Sarah recognized it immediately as Clara's. She opened the journal to find pages filled with the child's innocent scrawl, detailing her thoughts and dreams. Each entry painted a picture of a vibrant imagination yearning for freedom, but the final entries shifted in tone, becoming darker, more troubled. The whispers won't leave me alone. One entry read, "They want me to come outside. They say it's safe." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she absorbed Clara's pain. The little girl had been drawn into the darkness, enticed by the voices that had tormented her mother. The realization struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. The whispers were not just echoes of the past, but remnants of Clara's spirit, trapped and yearning for release. As if sensing her revelation, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver through the air. The whispers crescendoed into a desperate plea. Sarah felt a surge of determination as she stood up, gripping Clara's journal tightly. "I will help you," she declared, her voice unwavering. "I will not let your story fade away." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again, and a cold chill enveloped her. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, coalescing into a figure, a spectral form of a young girl with golden hair and tear-streaked cheeks. Clara stood before her, translucent yet radiant, the embodiment of innocence and sorrow. "Help me," Clara's voice echoed softly, carrying the weight of centuries. "I'm lost." With her heart racing, Sarah reached out, her hand trembling as it passed through the chill of Clara's presence. "I'm here for you," she whispered. "What do you need me to do?" Clara's gaze shifted toward the house, her expression a mixture of longing and fear. "It's in there, the darkness. It keeps me trapped. You have to find it." Sarah nodded, her resolve strengthening. She could feel the urgency pulsing within Clara's spirit, guiding her toward the final confrontation. With Clara's journal in hand and a fierce determination ignited within her, Sarah turned toward the McKinley house. As she stepped inside, the air grew thick with anticipation. The whispers transformed into a roar, a cacophony of voices demanding to be heard. Sarah knew she was on the brink of uncovering the truth that would unravel the ties binding Clara's spirit and bring peace to the McKinley family once and for all. With her heart pounding and the weight of history behind her, Sarah took a deep breath and plunged into the darkness, ready to face whatever awaited her within the heart of the house. The climax of her journey had arrived, and she would not falter. The resolution. As Sarah stepped deeper into the heart of the McKinley house, the air grew thick with tension, and the whispers intensified into a haunting chorus. Shadows clung to the walls like forgotten memories, and the temperature dropped, sending chills racing down her spine. The remnants of Eliza and Clara's pain resonated within these walls, urging her forward as she sought to confront the darkness that had claimed them. She felt a compulsion to return to the parlor where the family had once gathered, a place that now felt like a battlefield between light and shadow. Sarah's heart raced as she approached the familiar room, its atmosphere heavy with the weight of history. The once elegant furniture was now draped in dust, but she could almost see the echoes of laughter and love that had filled the space. Determined, Sarah stepped into the room, her flashlight illuminating the faded wallpaper and the portraits that hung on the walls. As she gazed at Eliza's painting, she could feel the woman's spirit lingering, still fighting to protect her daughter. The whispers surged, a tide of voices weaving through the air, carrying with them Clara's innocent plea for help. "Clara," Sarah whispered, her voice steady. "I'm here. I'll find a way to help you." Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted, and an overwhelming presence filled the space. Sarah felt a darkness materialize before her, a swirling mass of shadows that coalesced into a shape, an ominous figure shrouded in despair. It radiated malice, the embodiment of the sorrow and anger that had been trapped in the house for so long. Sarah stood her ground, heart pounding fiercely in her chest. "You have no power here," she declared, channeling the strength she had gained from Clara's spirit. "You can't hold her anymore." The figure recoiled momentarily, the shadows flickering in response to her words. The whispers transformed into anguished cries, the voices of those who had been lost to the darkness. They echoed through the room, a cacophony of sorrow that threatened to overwhelm her. But Sarah stood firm, clutching Clara's journal tightly in her hands. "Clara, I need you," she called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "Guide me." In that moment, the air shimmered, and the cold darkness seemed to waver. Clara's spirit emerged from the shadows, her form glowing with a gentle light that cut through the gloom. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread of hope. "You can do it." With Clara's presence bolstering her resolve, Sarah stepped forward, channeling every ounce of strength she had. "This is your end," she shouted at the darkness. "You cannot keep Clara from her family any longer." As her words filled the room, the shadows writhed in protest, a tempest of fury unleashed. But Sarah held her ground, her heart steady as she remembered the love that had existed in this house. The laughter, the warmth, the bonds that had once tied the McKinley family together. Clara's spirit reached out, intertwining with Sarah's essence. Together, they formed a radiant light that pushed against the darkness, illuminating the room with a brilliance that shattered the shadows. The whispers transformed from cries of anguish to harmonious melodies, a chorus of voices rising in unity. The dark figure twisted and writhed, its form destabilizing as the light encroached upon it. No, it roared, a cacophony of rage that reverberated through the air. But Sarah remained resolute, her heart alight with purpose. "Let them go," she cried, her voice echoing with authority. "Release them." With a final surge of energy, the light erupted, engulfing the darkness in a blinding flash. The malevolent figure dissipated, its cries fading into silence. As the darkness lifted, a sense of calm washed over the room. The air felt lighter, the burden of sorrow lifting as if a weight had been removed from the very foundations of the house. Sarah stood in the now quiet parlor, her heart racing with exhilaration. Clara's spirit glowed beside her, radiating joy and gratitude. "Thank you," Clara whispered, her voice full of warmth. "You freed us." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she reached out, feeling the warmth of Clara's spirit against her fingertips. "You're safe now," she assured her. "You can finally be with your mother." With a soft smile, Clara began to fade, her essence merging with the light that filled the room. "Remember me," she said softly, her voice echoing like a distant melody. "And tell my story." As Clara's spirit vanished, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her. The whispers had quieted, replaced by a serene stillness that enveloped the McKinley house. The legacy of the family, once marred by tragedy, now held the promise of healing and redemption. Stepping outside into the soft glow of dawn, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. The garden, once shrouded in shadows, now blossomed with life, the flowers reaching for the sky in vibrant colors. The McKinley house stood behind her, transformed, no longer a place of sorrow, but a sanctuary of hope. With Clara's journal in hand and the weight of the past lifted, Sarah knew she had a story to tell, a story of love, loss, and ultimately redemption. As she walked away from the house, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, ready to share the legacy of the McKinley family with the world. The resolution, as the dawn broke, illuminating the McKinley house with warm, golden light, Sarah stood in the parlor, the air still heavy with the echoes of the confrontation she had just faced. The oppressive darkness that had lingered in the corners seemed to have receded, replaced by a newfound sense of tranquility. The shadows that had once danced menacingly now lay still, as if they too were finally at peace. Clara's spirit had faded, but her presence lingered in Sarah's heart, infusing her with a deep sense of purpose. She felt a profound connection to the young girl, a bond forged in the heat of battle against the darkness that had sought to consume them both. It was as if Clara had entrusted her with a sacred duty, to share their story and ensure that the love and sacrifice of the McKinley family would not be forgotten. With Clara's journal clutched tightly in her hands, Sarah felt a surge of inspiration. She knew that the words within the pages were not just memories of a tragic past, but a testament to resilience and hope. Eliza's love for her daughter, coupled with Clara's innocent spirit, had overcome the darkness that had threatened to tear them apart. Now, it was Sarah's responsibility to bring that story to light. Stepping out onto the porch, Sarah took a moment to absorb her surroundings. The garden, once wild and unkempt, seemed to burst with life as the flowers swayed gently in the morning breeze. Sunlight filtered through the leaves of the ancient oak tree, casting playful shadows on the ground. The whispers that had once filled the air with dread were now replaced by the harmonious chirping of birds, heralding a new beginning. Sarah walked through the garden, her mind racing with ideas on how to honor Clara and Eliza's memory. She envisioned a documentary, a way to share their story with the world and shed light on the impact of unresolved trauma and the power of love. The McKinley house, now freed from its haunted past, would serve as the perfect backdrop for her project. It could become a symbol of hope, a place where the light of love triumphed over darkness. As she made her way back inside, Sarah began to gather her thoughts. The letters she had found earlier, filled with Eliza's heartfelt words, would serve as a foundation for the narrative she wanted to construct. Each entry would paint a vivid picture of the family's struggles, their love, and ultimately, the tragic fate that had befallen them. She wanted the world to understand that even in the darkest moments, love could shine through, providing a beacon of hope for those who felt lost. Days turned into weeks as Sarah dedicated herself to her project. She researched the history of the McKinley family, interviewing local historians and digging through archives to uncover every detail. She spoke to neighbors who had known the family, collecting stories that added depth to her understanding of Clara and Eliza's lives. Each new piece of information felt like a puzzle falling into place, enriching the tapestry of their legacy. As she worked, Sarah felt Clara's presence guiding her, offering encouragement and inspiration. She often found herself talking to the air, sharing her progress, and expressing her hopes for the documentary. The bond they had forged in the darkness had transcended time, intertwining their fates in ways Sarah had never expected. Finally, after months of hard work, Sarah completed the documentary, titled The Light of Hollow Hill. It was a tribute to the McKinley family, a story of love that endured despite the shadows that had threatened to consume it. As she screened the film for friends and family, she felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Would they understand the depth of the emotions woven into the narrative? Would they feel Clara and Eliza's spirits alongside her? As the final credits rolled, the room erupted into applause. Tears glistened in the eyes of her audience, their expressions filled with empathy and understanding. Sarah felt a swell of gratitude wash over her, knowing she had done justice to Clara and Eliza's story. They had been heard, their voices echoing through time. In that moment, Sarah realized that the resolution was not just about confronting the darkness. It was about celebrating the light that remained. Clara and Eliza would live on through their story, forever etched in the hearts of those who had come to know them. And as she looked out at the faces of her friends and family, she knew that love had triumphed over the shadows once and for all. Conclusion: the journey through the McKinley house had transformed Sarah in ways she could never have anticipated. What began as an investigation into a haunting had evolved into a deeply personal quest for understanding, connection, and ultimately healing. As she reflected on the experiences that had unfolded within those walls, she felt a profound sense of closure, not just for herself, but for Clara and Eliza, whose lives had been marked by sorrow, yet illuminated by love. In the months following the release of The Light of Hollow Hill, Sarah found herself enveloped in a wave of support and encouragement. The documentary resonated with audiences far and wide, sparking conversations about the importance of acknowledging the past, confronting trauma, and celebrating the enduring power of love. Viewers shared their own stories of loss and healing, creating a community bonded by shared experiences. Clara's story, once shrouded in darkness, had become a beacon of hope, inspiring others to find their own paths to healing. The McKinley house itself underwent a transformation, as it was no longer just a place haunted by tragedy, but a space dedicated to remembrance and education. Sarah partnered with local organizations to host tours and workshops, inviting visitors to explore the history of the house while fostering discussions about grief, resilience, and the importance of mental health. Each visitor who walked through the doors carried Clara and Eliza's story with them, spreading their message of love and healing to others. Sarah often visited the house, feeling a deep connection to its history and the spirits that lingered within. Each time she stepped inside, she felt a sense of gratitude for the lessons learned and the strength gained from confronting the shadows. The whispers that once filled the air with dread were now replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace, as if the spirits of Clara and Eliza were content at last. In her quiet moments, Sarah would sit in the garden, surrounded by the vibrant flowers that had flourished in the light of the sun. She would read from Clara's journal, reliving the innocence and joy captured in the child's words. It was a reminder of the love that had transcended even the darkest of circumstances, a love that had endured despite the pain and heartache. As time passed, Sarah found herself reflecting on the broader implications of her journey. The themes of love, loss, and redemption resonated far beyond the McKinley family story. They were universal experiences that connected all of humanity. She realized that everyone carried their own shadows, but within those shadows lay the potential for growth, understanding, and healing. Inspired by this realization, Sarah began writing a book that delved deeper into the lessons she had learned throughout her journey. It would serve as both a memoir and a guide, offering insights on how to navigate the complexities of grief and the importance of embracing vulnerability. She hoped to empower others to confront their own shadows and emerge stronger on the other side. The conclusion of her journey was not an ending, but rather a new beginning, a promise to honor Clara and Eliza's memory by continuing to share their story and advocating for mental health awareness. Sarah understood that healing was a lifelong process, one that required compassion, empathy, and a willingness to face the difficult truths of the past. As she penned the final words of her book, Sarah felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over her. Clara's spirit seemed to envelop her, a gentle reminder that love was the ultimate truth, the guiding light that would forever shine through the darkness. With a heart full of gratitude, Sarah closed the book, knowing that her journey had come full circle. In the end, she understood that the power of storytelling was not merely about recounting events, but about connecting with others on a deeper level, forging bonds of understanding and compassion. Clara and Eliza would live on through her words, their legacy a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And with that knowledge, Sarah stepped into the future, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, carrying their light with her always. Subscribe to Hollow Whisper Tales and unlock the secrets of the night.